Hey everyone, I'm here with Wildy Martinez. My name is Anne Marie Alanis, and this is actually in celebration of Chicago Fashion Week. And we're doing a little series on fashion for Rare Digital Bird. So, yeah, welcome, Wildy.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here and that everything worked.
Yeah.
Technology.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness for technology. Um, Speaking of technology, so Wildy is, she is a fashion designer, but she's also an artist as in Web3 and AI. And from what we talked about, you are also an AI consultant for people in the fashion industry, and you also have your own company, Wildflower Fields. So um, I actually, before we go deeper into that, I actually want to ask you about your name. Your name is so unique. What, who, why were you called Wilty?
Yeah, everyone kind of is curious about that, especially because a lot of people pronounce it Wildy, which kind of makes sense because of wildflower fields. So in the NFT space, when I started, I was known, like I would just say Wildflower was my name. You know how we all have our pseudo name in Web3. And then people just assumed that Wildy was because of wildflower, which technically it is, but it's pronounced Wildy in Spanish. And I'm Dominican American. It's not a Dominican name. It's not a common name. It is something that my dad made up.
Mhm.
But I used to be so like upset that that was my name. You know, as a kid, you're like, oh, why is my name so weird? Like we're already going through so much as kids, as first gen, trying to fit in. And later on in my adulthood, I really embraced my name and started digging, and it does mean wildflower. Um, and so it's really cool. I think I've met only one more person named Wildy in real life, and she actually is a woman, and she's French and in Web3. So it's so funny that we pronounce it the same. I'm like, oh, there are other people that have my name, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. It is my full name. It doesn't stand for anything else. Some people say, is it for like Wilhelmina? Or I'm like, no, just Wildy, no middle name. So very artistic, so it makes sense now that that is my name.
Well, it's so beautiful. Um, and I know that you really love fashion from an early age and that one of your grandmothers was a designer. You wanted to be in fashion at, was it the age of 6?
Yeah, really young. I knew I wanted to be in fashion art, like a creative person, like that was going to be the route that I was going to take.
What sparked that route?
Well, my mom, as she's, the stories that she tells me since I was very young, I loved like dressing up. She would say that I would color coordinate in such a way that she would be like surprised because I would dress by myself at age of like 5, 4. I was picking out my clothes. I wanted everything to match. And I just really paid attention to like, I was just a girly girl. And then I remember the age 6 or 7. I grew up in Washington Heights in New York City. My mom was out shopping. She took me with her, and we turned the corner in I think St. Nicholas, which is like where there's a lot of different stores. And I see Gabe is here, so he's Dominican and knows St. Nicholas. Um, and there was like an opening for a boutique and a clothing boutique. And I remember we stood there to look. They had the ribbon cutting, and I just saw the most prettiest dresses on the window, and they were like sequins, sparkly dresses, and they were like spinning like the mannequin. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And at that time, I was with an older cousin, and she loved sketching, and she was doing all these like Victorian dresses. So I started to also sketch and like copy her, like mimic what she was doing. And I just loved it. And I think my uncle, I don't know if it was my parents or my uncle, they bought me like a Barbie lighthouse, like a tracing, and you can make the Barbies like clothes. And I mean, I just kept going and kept like drawing, and I was literally like from a little girl called La Diseñadora, which means the designer, and that like literally followed me. And then at the age of 13, I went to Fashion Industries High School, which was a specialized high school for fashion and regular school stuff. And yeah, stayed and learned how to sew and design, do fashion shows already at the age of 15, 16. And I went on to FIT after that. So I've been in it for a long time, and like I still love it, and I'm still can't believe that I'm still doing this after, yeah, I don't know, it's going to be like 20 something years of me in this
Wow.
industry, whether entrepreneurially or corporately. Like I've done so many different aspects of it. And I think it just amazes me that then AI came along, and now this is a new thing, but within the same passion of mine. I think it's so crazy that this is happening. That I'm doing something that none of us had it we couldn't see the AI was going to be in this way, especially in the creative field.
Now, I know that you grew up in Washington Heights and you had your schooling in fashion from a very young age. And I know it was very competitive at FIT as well. Like, what was it like growing up in fashion in your neighborhood and school? Like, and it being so competitive as well.
Yeah. So, um, you know, I grew up so that was like the early 2000s and the 90s. So I grew up and a city kid, and it wasn't like a safe place to grow up. But back then, there was such a big importance over community and kind of like village, especially being Latina, like people look out for each other. And school for me became like my thing. Yeah, it saved me from so much trouble. What I could have gotten into at that age, at that time. Like there was a lot of like teen pregnancies. Like it was just in that era. So school for me definitely was where I poured my everything into, especially with fashion. And I was just like, was that girl? I'm gonna get out the block. I'm gonna get out the block. So if you guys ever watch the musical In the Heights, whoever's listening, I say this all the
Uh,
time, but it's like the only thing I can say that people can get an actual like depiction of how I grew up, because I grew up in the Washington Heights. There's a character that's a fashion designer. I mean, it's just like so crazy to me. If you watch that, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that character is based out of me, but it's very close. It's kind of creepy. But yeah, but I wanted to leave New York. I wanted to be on my own. So I actually got a full scholarship to Syracuse. They had just launched their design program, and I wanted to go. And I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave New York, and I'm going to just be done with the city and explore and be on my own. As a Latina kid, where you want to get out of the house because your parents are like super strict. I was like, I'm gonna go, and next thing you know, my dorm, wasn't ready. Like my check didn't get there on time, and I didn't have any place to stay. And it was already like the beginning of the school year. I had gone to the Fashion Institute of Technology (FIT), but I didn't understand how amazing FIT, like I knew was great, but I was like, I already went to fashion industry. I want to try something new. I didn't like appreciate it. And then my parents were like, why don't you just go to FIT for a year, and then we'll figure out the dorming if you still want to leave. Go to FIT. It's my first semester. I'm like, I don't know how to do everything. So I'm like, like sewing, and then the teachers are like so impressed. And I'm like a pro. Like I've been doing this already for 4 years in high school. So I'm definitely like teacher's pet, like their assistant. Come second semester, I'm like, holy smoke, like everybody caught up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is serious. Like it was just insane. ended up like obviously I stayed in FIT. I realized like all the students were international. Like it was such a big deal, and it all worked out. It was meant to be. Because I think a lot of the friends that went to Syracuse for design program actually had to do a whole year at FIT just to get that credibility. So I'm like, okay, I'm ahead of the game here.
Mm.
It was super competitive. I was very competitive. I just remember when I graduated, my parents were like, "You can like not work right away. You need to relax," because from sun up. I mean, I would just break nights just sewing, and then it was a state university, so I still had to do my history and my math and my bio, and then do sewing and do all my art projects. So it was such a great experience. And I've spoken about how my professors were just like so amazing. I had one professor that like showed my art behind my back because she knew I wouldn't do it on my own, and like sold one of my paintings. And then I think 2 years ago, I ended up minting the rest of that collection as a like thank you to just uh, teachers and professors that really encourage students, to have self-worth and like to have value and to believe in yourself. So I love this school so much. It was crazy, but it was amazing. It really helped me, like catapulted me to keep going and have a whole career out of it.
I remember you had mentioned on another interview that you had a lot of crazy stories from being an FIT. Do you want to share one of those stories?
I mean, sure. I mean, one of the stories that I could remember was, it was like late nights, and there were like labs that were available and open, but they would close at a certain time. So I would actually hide, and wait for the custodian to like leave so I can use the knitting machine because I had like a project due the next day. So I don't know if you guys know what a knitting machine is. Like a bunch of needles, and it's like you're like with the I forgot the name of it. But you're like knitting with it's a bunch of needles in your yarn, and you're kind of having to pass the loop around. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and here I am like just knitting away, and my arm got caught on one of the needles.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like 3 o'clock in the morning, like no one's here. I mean, I'm sure there's a few students like doing the same thing I was doing in other labs. And I just remember like I'm like, how can I unhook myself? I mean, I'm fine now, but I'm like, how can I unhook myself? That's how crazy, like we were, just like to get it done. Um, I would take the maximum credits too because I wanted to graduate on time. Like anyway, the custodian guy came in and unhooked me from the machine.
Thank God. Oh wow. Were you bleeding at all or?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, hmm
Wow.
yeah. So what do you do for like to get an A in class? That's what I would do.
Wow. Okay. So you were determined. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And I think it's great that you had the support of your parents and you had amazing teachers in your life. Like that is so important. So, yeah, that's so great that you had that.
yeah, yeah, totally. I think also it was just like I think I was just very determined, and also the work ethics that my parents had placed in me, not sometimes not as healthy, where I'm like, I need to relax sometimes. But um, yeah, I wanted to do everything as best as I could. Um, Probably too hard on myself. I still am, but it just being around in that surrounding of everyone just so creative. Like you had no boundaries. Then you go to the real world when I started to work, and then like you get like the corporate or like streamlining it. You can't just design whatever you want. You know you have to research what the brand is and follow their aesthetics. So it was also like going into the career part of it, and I was like, So I can't just design, anything and like, oh, I have to worry about like fabric prices
Oh,
and like mass production, so it's I think in school they really want you to dream big and they don't want to put any like boundaries. It's a place to like play, and I really appreciated that of them because now that I'm, independent artist, like a lot of that now I can dream up big with like AI and like so it's I'm glad that it was that way rather than teaching us. Obviously we learned marketing and all that stuff, but that it was more on the think outside the box rather than make sure you design something that's gonna sell, that would have been a little disappointing, I think.
and you said that you worked with a lot of. What was it like to? What's it like to? What was your early career like? Working.
So my first job, where I interned for this designer. I don't know if she's still around, but her name was Twinkle by Wenlon. She was up and coming designer, had her studio in the meatpacking district, like when it was becoming cool, and I loved working with her. She was a knitwear like designer and was known for like jewelry and she's so sweet. She treated the interns with so much respect. I remember she even included the interns in her book as a thank you, and so that was like my first like working and learning about SKUs and learning about just like merchandising the clothing. And then for my corporate now profession, my first job was working at Macy's actually. Um, I was hired as a design assistant, obviously, straight out of college. I'm 21, at 21, 22, and I'm working for assisting all the designers there, like six of them. And, a few were nice. I don't want to say anything negative because we're live. But yeah, it was a rude awakening. I did cry a lot on my
Mhm.
first job because it was just the pressure of like learning not learning new things but like wanting to do well. And I think for me, I did so well in school and like all my professors were like, you're gonna be amazing, and here I am in the real world and like um the designers are there have so like 5 years working there, they're like over it, and here I'm like you know
Yeah.
and they're like, who the heck is this girl? And I'm like, any little project they put me on, I would be like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be perfect. And I remember the director was like, we need this yesterday. Like and it was just an awakening, and then my first time being not treated kindly. Um, but it was really nice because the VP actually took me under her wings when she saw that I was having a hard time in the other department. And she was just so nice to me and taught me about like trends and prints. And I remember her offering me a job to be her assistant and travel with her all around Europe every year and Asia, getting the inspiration for the brand. And I didn't take it. I ended up taking another job as a assistant designer because I felt like, oh, I'm going to be sketching and I'm going to be doing this, and it's going to be more hands-on. It's a smaller company. It's not Macy's, where it's like corporate. I mean, this one's still corporate, but just smaller. I ended up doing that where I met I met an amazing boss, Anna Calamia, who was like a huge designer back in the 90s. And I feel like she just had so much patience with me. Again, I'm straight out of college. I'm just thinking everything's couture, and here we are, just like, what did Ralph Lauren do, and how can we do it in an affordable price? And it's like that mass marketing, or mass market and like designer level, not couture level. It took me a while to understand. Like that is kind of cool that you're taking inspiration from runway and making it uh, uh, available to people who cannot afford, $3,000 pair of pants. So that's when I started to learn about this industry of like runway inspo, and then how can we make it available to the regular people. So I learned more like technical stuff about fabrication, construction. How can do we really need this silk lining? No. So that kind of prepared me for that. But she was just so gracious with me and like patient. And at that time, I was doing my CADs, like flats by hand. It's crazy thinking about this. Like we haven't even started doing like Illustrator CADs or anything like that in this company. It was like by hand. And I'm like, okay, because she was old school. So I learned how to do spectacular flats, which are like specs, very, very technical sketches. I learned how to do it by hand, which is insane thinking about it now. And then I stayed there for a long time actually, because then I had another person took that over. So I actually stayed there for 7 years.
Mm.
And I mean, I don't want to bore you with the story. I Somebody else took me under their wing, taught me everything, and then I was just burnt out because I was when you work for a smaller design company, you're the only one. Like the graphic team, me. The fabric research, oh, me. Who's gonna go shopping and see what's out in the market? Me. And I was a one person show. I did have my own studio, which was pretty cool. Literally my own studio. I was there. I mean, uh, from day to night, I would leave the office midnight. Like it was just that, in my 20s, I was just in the city. I ended up telling my one of my best friends to come and join me. So it was like me and my besties, just like in the studio, like just going crazy, designing and all that stuff. And then I just got tired. Um, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but I was getting sick. That's when I started getting vitiligo, which was definitely, I think, stress induced. If anybody knows, I mean, you probably heard my story. I got vitiligo, which is autoimmune. Uh, well, I have an autoimmune, and it triggered the vitiligo, and I just needed to step back. I ended up going to the hospital just to like check, and I remember the doctor's like, "Hey, do you get sick on Saturdays?" I'm like, "Oh no, not really. It's just Monday through Friday." He's like, I think your job is stressing you out. And I'm like,
Interesting.
so I ended up quitting after 7 years, not a plan. I quit and I'm like, I don't think I want to do fashion anymore.
That actually went through your mind.
No, yeah, I actually quit. Like
Wow. Quit fashion.
I quit fashion.
Wow.
Um, and I ended up being in my parents' attic apartment, and I was very depressed
Mm.
and I didn't know what to do. And then I ended up like, I mean, no one knows this. This is definitely like, I never said this on like this space before. I started like a styling company called Fashion. Oh my God, what was the name of it? Fashion Styling with Wildy. I can't remember. And I would basically help women who just had a hard time getting dressed, like
Mhm.
didn't know how to style their clothing, especially moms, postpartum moms. And I
Oh.
would help them style their clothing and teach regular women like about color and how to match. I'm thinking maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, but that led me to somebody seeing one. I actually did a real life event with a bunch of women that came, and I held a fashion conference. So
Oh, wow.
like 20, like 25, I believe, 24, 25. And women came, older women, like had no idea that there's like color trends. And someone saw me doing that. It was like this guy who, like a business investor, and um, they gave him my contact. He's like, "Hey, I know a company that's looking for a designer and a stylist, and it's mission. I think I've mentioned it before. It's mission based, where the women who um, who are sewing the clothing are survivors from sex trafficking from Nepal. And I'm like, oh, this is purposeful. This is good. This is a good, you know. So I ended up joining. The company is Elegant Teas. I ended up joining and helping out, freelancing. I traveled to Nepal to meet the women who, some of the women that have been rescued from trafficking, young girls, heard their stories, and I became really passionate for a while about advocacy and awareness about modern day slavery, especially in New York, how it happens in our backyard. And I felt very, yeah, fulfilled. Like, you know, we used to say each t shirt saves lives, you know, like if you literally buy this, we're supplying a whole salary for a young girl so she can have a dignified job and not be susceptible for trafficking. Because, anyway, so it became like, you know, I was like, wow, I'm going to do this. But I needed more income. So I ended up going back into the industry and doing both. Yeah, and I kept working in the industry for different companies that had different licensings while freelancing. And I climbed up the ladder, became a design director, head designer for activewear company, and that's where I did stuff for like BCBG, Max Azria, Generation, Ali Tahari, all the like activewear licensing was kind of my responsibility, and I overlooked the whole team, and I was there for a long time. Again, I'm not gonna bore you with the detail because it's like this is 20 years trying to
Mhm.
recap it. But then in 2020, we were sent home because of the pandemic and COVID. They're like, you know, we'll just work from home. Did not expect that we were going to get all laid off. Like that whole department shut down. It went from furlough to we're not going to continue because our manufacturer all happened overseas. And thankfully, I was freelancing, and uh, I decided to join the company as a creative director, more full time, with Elegant Tea. So I didn't feel I mean, it was devastating losing my job because it's like part of your identity, um, which became my part of my identity. So I ended up taking that role. We decided to leave New York City. I'm now in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was freelancing, but I always felt like there's something more for me. And like, I don't know, anybody who's listening, you know that feeling. It's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but it's like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something more. And I started getting that feeling, and I ended up getting furloughed again, my remote job. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I ended up doing it was like, that was the year of 2021, I believe. I was like, you know, let me just, I love drawing. I didn't even talk about that, but in the pandemic, I was drawing a lot, um, sharing a lot of, like, it became like a therapy. So I was doing a lot of like advocacy for like colorism and racism and like within Dominican culture and but I was just sharing. I wasn't really like selling or anything like that. Even though even then, and now looking back, I would have people DM me, hey, can I buy that? So I would sell on demand some of my artwork, but it was just like, oh yeah, just give me like $25. You know, like I wasn't yeah, I could just, or I just I'll give it to you for free. And like a few, like 10 people, I remember like buying and framing them myself and like tagging me and talking about how powerful the art was and the story behind it. But then I did a whole like challenge of like sketch for August, sketch one thing every day and post it. And I started doing that, and usually doing that is not really for other people. It's more for you to like have like I was going through a lot of transitions. So I'm like I needed something constant that I could do, and it was like no pressure. It didn't matter what it was. It could be on a sticky note, just and post it. Um, and that's when the whole NFT chatter, I mean, it was already bull run, so I wasn't. It's not like I entered during the bull run, but I heard the chatter, and then I would get like my cousin, dude, like, you're an artist. There's this thing like NFTs. Basically, you post it and like you get so much money, and I'm like, what? And then my husband was like, I'm gonna investigate. So he ended up joining first, if anybody didn't know, my husband was NFT music when it was like not even a thing. He was minting music with his photography, and his music was what's that music that it's like lo-fi, like you hear in like healing.
Oh, binaural.
So he was doing binaural musical NFTs with his photography, which I think I'm like, I think like, you should get back into that because now, so and then he was like, I think this is more for you because you're like so good at storytelling. And this NFT community looks like it's more like a community of people really believing in their story and their art. And that's when I was like on Instagram. Wait, before that. So then I was like, let me do research. So I ended up joining a group called Crypto Club on Slack, which was led by my friend TJ, who is an ex Wall Street finance guy. And I'm learning like about crypto, and I'm learning about like I set up my wallet, I cried, like it was so stressful. Um, then he had like an NFT channel that I would chime in whatever I was learning. And then I took some courses on the Udemy app, like NFTs 101. And this is when I think Beeple and like Ape and a few projects were like really, this is like when the celebrities are coming in. And I was like, I still feel like I don't know about this crypto thing. And I saw an ad for this marketplace which is no longer with us.
Oh.
Let's have a moment of silence for all the rugs.
Yeah.
um, and they were advertising this marketplace saying this is pro artist, this is crypto optional, and no pressure. And like I'm like, you know what? All right. So I ended up minting the series that I did in 2020 that people were like interested in.
Was that voice.com? Was
It
that
was.
okay?
Were you in it?
No, no, no. I was not it. Yeah. So you minted there?
Yeah, and I met so many people. Listen, it was amazing. It was amazing. Like the reason why I'm still in Web3, and I'm not gonna give them all the credit, but it's because I met all the people, the DJs, like these amazing people who like taught me. I mean, I still talk to like Ella with Bright Light, who I love her so much, and met her there. Pang one, I met him there. Like so many people that we met and we're still here, which is crazy. And I started minting, and I think one of my friends bought one. It was like $25 USD coin. Like I wasn't going crazy. I had some like fashion illustrations. And then that's the time when, okay, now I'm in. Now I'm on Twitter, and now it's crazy. I would wake up. I don't know how we did that. I would wake up on spaces, like 24/7 spaces. I would, go on. Yeah, it was just like that crazy world of like spaces and shilling, and GM, you still do it. And I remember like telling my husband, like, I don't know, this is too much work. Like the marketing, like cool, we're making that, but the marketing, because now everyone's just buying. And that's a time where literally people will put like a squiggle and it will sell. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, it's not nice art. Like, I don't, and so weird. Anyway, I remember praying before bed. I'm like, you know what? Like, I need a sign. If this is how it is, and I have to like restructure my brain to be on like this, because I don't think I was, my mind wasn't ready. Like my brain wasn't able to do that, like to be on like that all the time. It was definitely an adjustment. I think probably did get a little bit of, I don't want to say it, but we all have it, a little bit ADHD. Like I just
Yeah.
like, when I would get a ping, I would have to look at my phone, and that's when I had notifications on. Now my phone is always on do not disturb, which is because of it. So I went to bed and I was just like, I need a sign. And I remember waking up to like my phone dinging because I made a sale. It was like my NFT was like for 50 like USD coin. Somebody bought it. My friend, his name is Cyrus Savage 24, which thank you. Because he really did change like everything because he bought it and then he resold it for I think it was like 1600.
Wow.
Time we had like so much royalty. I think it was like 45 to 40% or something like that. Um,
Wow.
and then somebody bought it and put it on third for double, and somebody bought that. I woke
Wow.
and then I sold out that collection, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But this is not OpenSea. I started then putting some stuff on OpenSea, and then I started meeting more community. I met like the Latino Society. That's where I met all my Latino friends, and they were doing a great job of like sharing our art globally. So we would get in like uh, on cyber together slash spaces, but it was with like Japan artists, China, and it was like this global um, networking, and then that's when around that time, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a piece on, I was still on voice, and I'm going to put vitiligo on her, and I'm going to talk about this for the first time. Like I was talking about colorism and growing up Dominican, and then I'm like, let me share this. I really feel like I need to share this. And that piece was collected by Alex, who is the co-founder of Meta Angels, now the Hug, which is so interesting how it worked out. And she DM'd me and she's like, I saw it when you announced it and I've been waiting for it to go live. And to me, that also was a big moment for me in Web3 because I admired her. I admired the Meta Angels. I admired Sarana, which was their artist for all the angels. And the fact that she was like, that she wanted this specific piece was amazing to me. And I think her sharing it and talking about it within the Meta Angels and like that community and giving me the space to talk about my story and how like I want to be free. I want to just tell people like, hey, I don't want to hide anymore. And that that became like my I don't say my why, but it became like something that defined me and set me apart from a lot of artists. The flowers, why the flowers? Because they're unique. They're not the roses that people buy. They grow without being tended to in really hard places, and they still bloom. Um, you know, don't be like a rose. It's just like that story and how it's connected to the art of self embrace. And I just kept going. And then one of my other pieces that I remember like crying when it got sold was called Libertad, which she had with Ligo, and it became my first international exhibition in Colombia, and it was my genesis in Origin, no, Foundation, one of those platforms. But it was just like women collecting my art, like powerful women. Like Belle NFT collected one of my pieces. Like it's just like this community of women buying my stuff. It wasn't even men. Cyrus was a man, but it was just like, well, I'm gonna keep going. And then I would just get people DM me, like if they would hear my story, like, oh, my son has vitiligo, or my sister, or my wife, or I get a lot of dads that like their daughters love fashion, so they'll buy my NFT to give it to their daughters. So it just became like this really beautiful like community. I don't want to like overuse the word, but of people liking, not liking me, but it was a place where I felt like I could add my fashion, my story, talk about vitiligo, and it was all under one umbrella. And that's how Wildflower Fields technically was born because that's how I house everything in it. Especially, even my fashion services are under Wildflower Fields just to make it legit. Um, but yeah, so that's basically how I started in the space.
Wow.
Long
Um,
winded. Goodness.
No, it's rich. It's rich with a lot of awesome information. So you said that you freelance. So you freelance as a fashion designer, AI consultant. Like what exactly? What services?
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. I want to talk more about it in our spaces. How like I get now I work as an AI consultant for brands. So yeah, I got hired to do um, with a company that they basically manufacture clothing for celebrities. So I can't say too much, but basically I come in to when they are in the investor like step where they want to pitch this idea to the celebrity, and let's say we don't have the actual products to show them. So I come in and I create them using AI. So I basically create campaigns with the product, and it's so helpful that I have a professional background because I'm designing things that can actually be produced, that can actually be for that client, for that brand, for that celebrity. So we just do a whole campaign. Um, they bring me in to do a whole campaign for them, and then they show it to their investor or the celebrity who wants to create this new brand or product. So I do that. I also get hired to train fashion designers in the industry how to use AI creatively, whether it's for mood boards, whether it's to, a client loves this jacket, but they want to see it like this. So instead of us making a brand new sample, now we could just use AI to visually show how it will look like if we produce it with this different kind of sleeve. Um, so that's and it's really cool again because I have the background, so I know how designers talk and what they need and how to streamline their creative process. And then I recently just worked with an amazing client, and I did all their brand conceptual images using AI. So it's been pretty cool. And I do workshops. I do one-on-ones or group workshops for like they want to learn how to use Midjourney or Luma or One Way or how do I do this all this stuff, right? So it's really amazing, and I want to thank the Hug for this because it really like I got into the to work with L'Oreal because of Hug, and it was AI, and it was basically they picked three of us to create this project using AI to present to the artist, the hair artist, how they can use it in their creative process, whether it's to develop a new color or whether it is that they have a new color, how can they like this is actually from L'Oreal and I created just to show them images of how you can. I was assigned the color red, the new red color, and I ended up like how can I show them that you can actually be out the box with AI and not fear that your job is going to be taken away? Because that was like a lot of you know, there was a lot of apprehension and like fear around AI. And so I showed them like, I was like, okay, I told ChatGPT to give me actual technical microscopic lenses. And then I used that, fed it into Midjourney to do zoomed in microscopic images of red poppies that we can then use to like, and they're like what. So and they're so excited, so I feel like it was such a win. From in the beginning the crowd was like, and then at the end they're like wow. So I love that each of us did and so many, like our styles are so different. I know Kaylee did like paint and AI. Najilia did a video, and it was like a turning cork that looked like curly hair, and she talked about curly hair and embracing it. So yeah, so it's kind of cool that we can be at the forefront, like us, the artists, to be hired to show the companies all these things rather than. I mean, I love tech people, but it is so nice to have somebody that is in the industry or in the space to show companies in a more creative light rather than like a technical light, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
because it just becomes friendlier, I think, to hear.
That's awesome. You talked about, I guess, I don't recall exactly what you said, but it reminded me of sustainability, and sustainability has been a big thing during Chicago Fashion Week, I noticed. Is there, like, what has been, I guess, my question would be is how have you been, how do you see in the future it being used, or maybe it's being used now, with current tech? Like, how can it help with sustainability?
Yeah. I mean, we've been I think fashion has been in this sustainability route so far. Like I feel like that's conversation has been happening for so long, whether it's like reusing fabrication that has been recycled and that route. Then there's the wearable side, which is like in the consumer side where you're trying on clothes using AR so that you know how it fits you instead of buying the clothes and having to return it, so that you're not like the energy is not, you know, we're saving energy or your carbon footprints. Then the route of sustainability in production, like if you have there's a digital twin, you know, side where you can create the clothing based on the digital twin model that it fits exactly. So you're cutting down on like sample supply, pattern making. I mean, I worked in the industry for so long, and it's embarrassing to say like I'm getting this shirt in for the fourth time, as in like it's still not fitting right. So we have to sample again, and then you know, when you produce something and you just have so much stock. So I'm hoping that we can use this technology to cut down on like stock and buying more on demand. If the customer can see it on them with AI and we have their measurements, somehow we can cut down on like producing 100,000 of those, you know, jackets somehow. And it definitely is going to cut down on that, especially with now with buyers. So, for example, usually you show the sketch and then the buyer might want to see how it looks like in real life before doing a PO, a purchase order, which is how you can then make make it. Um, Now you can show them like an AI image that's like exactly how it would look like in real life. So they can buy it from the AI image rather than a CAD where they might not see how it would fit. So that's where I see it being used more like they would there's actually a realistic way to use it rather than saying, well, we can use this. This is like how I use it. Like this is how it looks like. Do you want to buy this before we make it and waste fabric and hold the line in the in the sample room? So yeah, I do see it happening. I I mean, you know, we say people here in our space, right, that the metaverse is going to become big. I know there's been kind of like a lull. I know last year we had huge companies joining in. I know H&M and um, I remember seeing Bo Singapore on the metaverse and digital becoming digital twins and wearables being a huge conversation. I'm hoping that we can keep going. I just don't know if every person. When are we going to say like, you know, I'm not going to buy clothes. I'm just going to buy wearables because I'm online, you know. So it could happen. I just don't know when that's going to be happening, you know, as frequent as we think.
Okay. Do you think AR and VR will take precedence before? I feel like it's in reality and more people are, as far as AR.
Um, I love AR. I mean, I love trying things on, but it's just like I see, you know, like for example, I think it was Coach that they had their like AR in their store. Like I see it more for marketing, if that makes sense, marketing the brand. Now I know the app like Try On is great because you can try, like I said, you can try on your clothes beforehand. Now where I see pivoting a little bit from AI and more techie, like blockchain. I
Mm.
feel will be adapted a little bit more into the fashion with like the putting all the information, who made the clothes. Like I see that a more of a use case scenario where we can use blockchain technology to really track down the, if this is a real pair of Nikes, is this a counterfeit? Like I see that more being implemented faster than AR, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's
That's
great.
my opinion.
Hmm?
I mean, that's my opinion,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Um, so I want to kind of go back to like who or what inspires you. Uh, are there any particular designers or even just around the world? I know that you are very inspired by flowers and wildflowers. Is there anyone else or anything else?
designer wise, I love Oscar de la Renta. He's Dominican too, and I just got inspired by him, Carolina Herrera, just like fashion people that I love. Dior, obviously, Balenciaga. Like I'm very inspired by the 1950s couture era. I think I've minted a few like Chanel and like Balenciaga, like 1950s, somewhere in the blockchain. But I just love. Um, I remember I was in love with Urte, which is like a 1920s designer that like invented the flapper era. Like I just love historical designers that like shift the history of fashion, like Chanel and like her doing suits. Like people that like shifted the whole world with clothing are like amazing to me. That they shifted how women are viewed. Um, I think it's amazing. I love learning about artists. Like I just did a new job called Muñecas Lime, which are like these faceless dolls in my culture, ceramic dolls. And I went into like a deep dive, and I'm like, it was a woman artist who did this, and it was in my parents' hometown of Moca, and she created these faceless dolls and her reason for it was like Dominican culture. We're too diverse and too beautiful to even try to put a face on us. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like that all my life I kept seeing these dolls and like I didn't had no idea. And then I looked up like, oh, it's a woman creator who did this, and she wanted to shift the view of Dominican culture. And I'm like, oh, I want to continue this. I want to make sure I talk about this and put it on the blockchain. I just love designers like that are like the 1920s, the 1950s, when you see the shifts of fashion. I love the history of fashion, art history. It's my favorite major in school. And then the flowers, I've since doing like the wildflower like NFTs, I started to learn so much about different wildflowers and how crazy they are. As in, like, there's a flower that grows in volcanic rock. There's a flower, and these are not. I think it's just amazing to look at nature and like no human person planted that seed. So it's just I just been so curious about them. That's why I like do different experiment, like putting it under a microscope. Or, I was like, what is my national flower in Dominican Republic? And it was the Rosa Vallajive that I did a collection of recently with moon paint and like just doing research, because I think sometimes um, we forget to like look at the flowers. I'm a spiritual person, and like there's a verse that says, "Look at the wildflowers." And I'm like, I wonder why it says that. And then I'm like looking at the wild. I'm like, whoa, this is a whole universe within this flower. And I find it very intriguing, and that's why I love to use it. Like I have a quote here in the field of roses. She's a wildflower, which is like I didn't make it up,
I
but
love that.
it's something that I say all the time to myself and to people. Like when I see myself trying to keep up with trends or like be relevant, or I guess, and I'm like, hey, girl, you're not a rose. you're a wildflower. Like, why are you trying to like be someone that you're not called to be? So I have a huge reverence for that uniqueness and like how like even how I speak or how you speak, your hair, like it's so important for us to really embrace, I don't want to sound corny, the wildflower in us. Like we're so different. And I just sometimes like when I see trends or when I see certain things, and now that I don't follow certain fashion trends, but I don't like when it takes over and then we're all like looking the same. I'm like, what?
Mm,
We're not meant to be unison here, guys.
yeah.
So that's why I make it an effort when I do the Lego stuff, like to talk about that and just beauty that is not the standard, and what we've seen, and especially with my culture. And I like to experiment and do all that and put it in whether AI or illustration or conversation. I try to bring it to the forefront, the importance of diversity.
Can we go deeper? Let me see if I can share actually Muñecas Lime, is it?
Mhm.
Lime? Let me see if I can share that and do a deeper dive into it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So I know that this is, the faceless nature of it was really important to this. Um, and could you go deeper into like the story and then the process?
Yeah. So basically, I called my mom. That's where it started. I called my mom and I was like, hey, I don't know, where did this come from? I honestly don't know how. Okay, let me back up. The inspiration, the color scheme for this happened. I was like looking through a book of flowers and I was really inspired by the color story of, there was a digital artist. I should have written down the name. And I got inspired by just the clean lines and the colors. And I usually like to include vitiligo where I can. Obviously, she has a face, so they're not all faceless. So you can kind of see like if you look closely, they're like it's kind of a little bit of everything about me. So there's fabric swatches, there's flowers, I wanted them to be dark skinned because the muñeca lime traditionally are darker skin to show that we are a mix of Taino, indigenous, and European blend and African blend. So I wanted to keep like the natural hair, and I wanted it to look like, and this is all done using like AI and my reference images. And I wanted it to look like, I wish I could turn the camera, but when I work, like I'm pinning fabric, so it kind of looks I'm pinning fabric around them. And I wanted to keep their face. Some of them have faces, some of them don't, but kind of this abstract look to them. And so obviously they're like a little fashionable. So I called my mom and she was like, yeah, it was this woman who made it. And she was from Mocha, which is where we're from, both of my parents and my grandparents from both sides from this town. And yeah, I have more that I did not mint because I want to do a print collection. But yeah, I wanted to share the story. I didn't expect for it to do so good. I didn't put the prices so high, but I just love that people resonated with them. And then I named them after like my aunts because all my aunts have them in their home. And there's one named
Oh,
after my mom. There's one named after my grandmother who passed away. That's my mom, La Bruni, because my mom is super fancy and she looks fancy to me. So yeah, it was just like a fun collection for me to do. It came from a place of fun. Some of my collections can come from a place of advocacy, so sometimes they're a little bit like heavier on my artist heart. But this one was more whimsy for me and like lighthearted, and I was just like, let me just do it and see. It's very spontaneous, and um, I think I only have two editions left of that one. I was keeping it open, but Tonight I am whatever, if I have one left or two left, I'm going to burn because then I'll be
Mm.
officially sold out, and I'm going to do a raffle for with all the collectors. And yeah, whoever's name gets picked, I'm going to create the NFT they collected as a fine art digital print, and I'm going to send it to them as a thank you. And so if you're hearing this, I'm not sure if I have any editions left, but grab it. It's only 3 tassels, not that much. But I wanted this to be a little bit more fun and like gamified a little bit. I am gonna have perks for the other collectors. I'm thinking of giving them a discount of my Hug storefront for like any of my prints there or my NFTs that I have in the Hug shop. So yeah.
Ah, I love that. It's so great that you're having your raffle tomorrow, so you're able to like announce it to everyone today. So I hope it gets sold out and you don't have to burn any of them.
No,
Yeah.
there is one on the secondary market, which is it's really cool. I'm like, let me go check.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 editions. Just because I want to be able to close it out and pick the winner. I don't even
Hmm.
know what app to use for. I think there's a raffle thing on Twitter actually. In specs, is there? I don't know. Anyway,
Unfortunately, I don't know.
or send me if whoever's listening link to. I'm sure I could find it to do like pick a name from a hat or something. Where I could
Yeah.
do that. I don't know. Yeah, but
S-
it's so fun.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful collection. I guess well, one of the last questions. What would be your advice to fashion designers like entering the world of AI and Web3?
Um, I get asked that a lot because of AI fashion. I feel like now in this year specifically, where I was like very like Web3, and I would keep like my freelance stuff separately. Like I wouldn't talk about that on X. But now because AI fashion is so available and like my friends who are doing it, who are in the industry, are not necessarily in Web3, which is so interesting to me. There's so some of them ask me like, how do you get into Web3, or like what are you doing? Because I'm like selling my stuff where they're just like showing it. And uh, I think now, like honestly, I tell them how open up your an X account, and I'll share you with communities. I always advise them to like maybe join Hug for opportunities. And like anything else, you just kind of have to start. I really like when someone asks me how to do it, and then I tell them the steps, and then I see them on X, and they're like on foundation. I'm like, oh, you you're gonna have to want to do it yourself. Like this is not you get in and hope for the best. You have to be in it, and that's why I'm very careful to onboard. Like I could tell you what to do, but you you have to take initiative. Like if you like I had a friend who she would say, hey, give me 30 minutes, and like she'll buy me coffee, or send me, for your time here, coffee break. And she's killing it because she wanted to do it, and she has a passion. She's going to be doing art residency with me. Like I'm like, yes. And then there's people that do it, and they're like, oh, it's hard. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, and you don't really,
Mm.
maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
And I always say you got to be a little bit crazy to be in here. A little, not right.
I agree. I agree.
We're like, why are we here? But yeah, you have to have the like anything else, do your research, get in and kind of figure it out. And yeah, like if you're interested in something, don't like go set a meeting with the person that you want to mentor you and take initiative. Don't just wait for like me or somebody like you who has been in here to be asking you, hey, do you want to learn more? Like, no, you need to want it. And because we all paid our dues. Like I had to do my research, and I had to plug in, and I had to show up every day, and meet people and make friends, and so it's still the same. You still have to hustle.
You talked about your residency. So why don't you go into what you're currently doing and your upcoming projects that you want
Oh
to talk
my
about?
gosh. Okay. One that's coming up is Futurista fashion show. So I am actually directing a fashion show, immersive fashion show in Colombia,
Ooh,
Medellin, with the University of Medellin, and Hola Metaverse was an amazing community founded by Ritzy and Ozzy. They're in Web3. They bring events to Latin America and bring Web3 knowledge. They have worked with this university before, and it was actually my first exhibition well, it was in Bogota, but because of them. And during NFT NYC this year, they approached me and Max Pretend, who's an amazing producer, musician in this space. And they say, hey, we want to do a fashion show and we would love you guys to come in and help us direct it. And that's what I've been doing. So I actually fly out in 2 weeks.
ooh,
And the students, I just saw all their sketches. They look amazing. And yeah, we're gonna have AR, AI. We're gonna have music. It's gonna be in like their theater. I mean, thousands of people are gonna be showing up to this, and I've been like their guest professor for a few months now, and I can't believe it's happening. If anybody wants to join and sponsor me, let me know. DM me. And then yeah, then that's November, and then December, I come back home and then I leave right away because I'm going to be doing art residency with One Love DAO, One Love Art DAO, which is founded by Jenny and Chaz. It is a group of us, an amazing community to be a part of. I mean, because of them, I've exhibited, in Times Square, and it's gonna be so much fun. Like literally, somebody was texting me that they had a dream that we were all together, like working on art already. I'm like, it's gonna happen. So this is a dream come true. I did Art Basel last year for the first time, and I was able to showcase in ApeCoin, which was really cool. And with One Love DAO, but this is like my first official art residency. Yep.
wow, congratulations. And I'm so excited for you and all the upcoming events.
Thank
So
you.
amazing. So why don't you just tell everybody where they can find you? I can also put it up on here, but you can go ahead and show it or
Follow
say.
me on Instagram, the Wildflower Fields. I also have another Instagram. You'll find it in my main Instagram. It's all about fashion. And then on X, it's at Wildy underscore Martinez, all lowercase.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is so great, and I love your story.
Yeah.
So amazing. I love your collections. I'm a big fan.
So
So
thank you. We'll pick up that edition, girl.
I'll try. All right.